how to work inside of the 3D views in Vue Extreme. Alright, so let's jump right into learning how to navigate inside of our viewports. Now the top, side, and front viewports are our orthographic views, and they are navigated a little bit differently than the main camera view. So to get started, let's learn how to pan in the top, side, and front view. We can do this simply by holding down the right mouse button and translating our mouse in any direction. Now if we want to zoom into the viewports, we use our mouse wheel, and if we scroll forward we'll zoom in, and if we scroll out or scroll back we'll zoom out. Now on this we can't actually orbit inside of our orthographic views, so the only navigation that we can do in our orthographic views are simply panning and zooming. Now it is a little bit different inside of our main camera view, so let's talk about how to navigate in there next. So to pan inside of our main camera view, we need to hold down Shift on the keyboard and then our right mouse button and then move the mouse. Now if we want to orbit inside of our main camera view, we hold down Alt and use the right mouse button and then move our mouse around, and that will begin to orbit around the object. Now let's say that we want to just orbit the camera or rotate the camera on its own axis. So basically kind of like we're controlling where the camera is looking. So we hold down our right mouse button and then move the mouse, and this will begin to move the camera and changing where it's pointing at. Now if we want to dolly that camera in, so kind of like we're zooming in, we're going to use our mouse wheel and we're going to scroll forward and that will zoom in. Now notice the camera object here in your side view and how it's actually physically moving. So this is called dollying. So if we move the mouse wheel forward, we're zooming in. If we pull it back, we're zooming out. You'll see that that camera is moving away from the mountain. Now if we want to actually zoom the camera or change its field of view, we need to hold down Control and then hold down our right mouse button and click and drag, and that will change the field of view of that camera. So it's actually zooming in on the physical camera. It's not actually moving the camera itself or dollying the camera. Okay? So now that we've learned how to navigate in our orthographic views and our main camera view, let's talk about how we can manipulate the viewports themselves. So if we want to resize a specific viewport, we can do that by simply clicking and dragging on the vertical line or the horizontal line to change this up. So if I grab a hold of the vertical line and move this to the left, you'll see how that resizes the side and the main camera view. Well, it also resizes the top view and the front view as well, but just makes them smaller. We can move this to the other side and get the exact opposite effect. Now, if I grab the horizontal line here, that'll give me the same thing. Now I can go ahead and move all of these viewports and resize them all at the same time by clicking and dragging right along the center, and that will change the viewport itself. Now let's say that I want to get back to that default setup to where all of the viewports are the exact same size and everything is centered up. What I can do is grab right along this center and kind of move this toward the middle, and you'll notice how those dotted lines snap into position. Well, that snapping is the default location for the viewports. So once we release that, you'll see that now these are all sized correctly. Now coming from a 3D background, sometimes I like to work in a maximized viewport, and we can actually do that inside of Vue. So to maximize a specific viewport, just simply click on or double click on the viewport label, and that will maximize that viewport. Now if you want to restore that viewport back to that quad view, you double click on it one more time and that'll restore that. Now you can do this on any viewport, it's not just the main camera. Now we could also maximize and restore by clicking on the view display options, and you'll see maximize restore here. And we could do the same thing again to restore that. Or we could use the maximize restore button up here at the top. All right. Now one last thing that I want to show you before we end this lesson is how we can get back to a default location inside of our scene. So let's say that you are panning around in your view and you get a little lost, and sometimes it's pretty easy to do. What we can do is right click in our scene and you can see frame all, and what that will do is take everything in your scene and get everything inside of the viewport. So you'll see that we have our camera, we have our sunlight, and our terrain. Now we could also frame on a specific object. So let's say we only want to look at the mountain range itself. We don't necessarily need to see the camera and the sun. We can select that object, we can right click and go to frame selected objects. You'll see how that frames there. Alright, so that's a quick look at how to navigate, how to frame our objects, and how we can manipulate the viewports and maximize and restore those viewports. Now this is a pretty basic look. If you want to get a little bit more out of navigating the viewports, you could take a look at our beginner's guide to Vue in our library. Okay, so in our next lesson we're going to take a look at the interface, and we're going to start to break that apart and getting an idea of what objects are where, and try to memorize how the interface is broken apart and just making it really easy on ourselves. So we'll start on that in our next lesson.